Jump, Scooby!
The Saturday morning programs hold a special place for everyone who grew up through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and this primetime slot was always reserved for the best of the lot. The three major commercial television networks, NBC, ABC, and CBS, typically scheduled their most popular animated and live-action content during this time, and the popularity of the Saturday morning cartoons kept growing from the 70s. In this video, we'll be exploring some of the finest Saturday morning cartoons from the 70s, so make sure to stay tuned for this nostalgic throwback. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Get out of here! Hurry!
Star Trek, the animated series, 1973 to 1975. After the popularity of the Star Trek live-action series, it was time to step into the animated domain, and Star Trek, the animated series, became an instant hit with the audience. The narrative is set in the 23rd century, in the familiar Star Trek universe. Here, Earth is a member planet of the multi-species United Federation of Planets, and the focus is largely on Starfleet, the military and exploration division. A fleet of starships travels across the galaxy and make contact with alien races. And the show mostly follows the adventures of the USS Enterprise, a crucial Starfleet vessel led by Captain James T. Kirk. This animated series was critically acclaimed, and it was also the first Star Trek series to win an Emmy Award during the second season of the show. It still manages to hold its own in the modern era, and this grossly underrated series perfected everything from the storylines to the visuals. There was a lot more creativity regarding the monsters and alien worlds that were shown in the series, and the top-quality writing never allows for a dull moment. The voice acting also deserves a special mention, courtesy of legendary actors like Leonard Nimoy as Spock and William Shatner as Captain Kirk. Overall, the show is truly deserving of the Emmy Award and all the critical and fan appreciation that it gets. And if you're a Star Trek fan, there's no way you can miss out on this. The Pebbles and Bam Bam Show, 1971 to 1976. If you're familiar with the original Flintstones, you must remember Pebbles, the baby daughter of Fred and Wilma Flintstone. Their neighbors, Barney and Betty Rubble, also had a son named Bam Bam. And now these kids have grown up. As teenagers, they experience various adventures, and the show explores everything about their life, from their struggles at school to their exploits with their friends. Everyone loves a fun spin-off, and the Pebbles and Bam Bam Show is a nice reminder of the legacy of Flintstones. The best part of the narrative was that whenever Fred and Wilma appeared in the episodes, they never showed any signs of aging. Their grown-up daughter Pebbles, however, always came up with some bright ideas, although they usually ended in a grand failure. This is bound to remind you of her father and his big lousy ideas that never really worked. The episodes act as an enjoyable extension of the much-loved series, but there are a few flaws that we can't ignore. The stories sometimes become lame, and the greatness of the original series is hardly captured in the spin-off. If you've grown up watching the Flintstones, you must just give this one a try for some harmless fun and humorous characters. Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? 1969 to 1978. Scooby-Doo has to be one of the most recognizable faces in Western animation, and this particular version is one of the longest-running editions of the animated series. Although the show premiered in 1969, it continued well into the late 70s and made for a popular program in the Saturday morning slots. The series explores the familiar tale of a group of four best friends and their talking dog, Scooby-Doo, who is certainly not the bravest soul around. Shaggy, Daphne, Fred, and Velma keep running into serious adventures, and somehow they always come out as the winners, even with their terrified dog slowing them down. The 70s version of this classic cartoon feels so fresh that you will almost find it contemporary. It's always a nice feeling to watch the group travel around in their van and come across the strangest of mysteries. The stories are simple and engaging, and the narrative appeals to both children and adults. Shaggy and Scooby-Doo are always the main focus in the stories, and they offer plenty of comic relief to keep things light. The show also encourages critical thinking and logic, and the horror and mystery element in the stories always keep the viewers on their toes. Even the simplistic animation is soothing, and the perfect voice acting is the icing on the cake. Overall, this is a perfect production that no cartoon lover can look beyond.
Lord of the Jungle.
Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle, 1976 to 1978. This animated series, created by Filmation, brings the popular character of Tarzan into the animated world. It takes you into the wonderful adventures of Tarzan, who's a spokesman for the weak and less fortunate. He fights against all forms of wrongs and evil, and he shows his skills in protecting the wildlife as well as the human visitors. He works alongside his sidekick, the monkey named Nkima, and Tarzan uses all his wits to stay one step ahead of his opponents. There have been numerous Tarzan adaptations over the years, but this one has to rank as one of the most faithful ones to date. While you see Tarzan as a simple-minded individual in most films, this animated series depicts him as intelligent and well-spoken. The stories are intense and exciting, and we also love the rotoscoped animation based on the work of Edgar Rice Burroughs' favorite artist, Vern Hogarth. For many kids growing up during this era, the cartoon series was the first introduction to Tarzan, and it was surely a memorable one. Of course, the producers had to add a lot of extra challenges for Tarzan, and they introduced everything from Vikings to mad scientists and colonial hunters. But as long as you're not looking for logic in a children's cartoon show, you will surely enjoy this animated series. Speed Buggy, 1973 to 1983. Tinker, Mark, and Debbie are three friends, and among them, Tinker has developed a remote-controlled car. Together, they participate in various car races, and the specialty of their car is that it has a mind of its own. Aside from the races, these teenagers are also involved in several mysteries, and as you can imagine, it often comes down to their wonder car bailing them out. This special car is called Speed Buggy, and it can fly and even float on water, among its other features. It's this car that helps the friends foil the plans of sinister villains, and their adventures never allow a dull moment in the show. Speed Buggy is a relatively underrated cartoon series that deserves a lot more love and recognition. It was so successful back in the day that it aired on all three major networks during the time, but over the decades, the popularity has waned off. The story is heartwarming and enjoyable, and it's always exciting to watch the antics of Speed Buggy as it helps the likes of Tinker, Mark, and Debbie from all kinds of danger. Mel Blanc as the voice of Speedy is too good, and equally impressive are the other voice actors. Everyone who watched the show wished that they had a car like that, and you should certainly check this one out because they don't make animated series like this anymore. The Brady Kids, 1972. After the success of the live-action series, the Brady Bunch found their way into animation, and the story revolves around a group of kids, the Brady Kids, who form a pop group. They have a few animal friends, such as a couple of pandas, a shaggy dog, and a magical bird, and together they all go on various adventures that make the episodes so interesting. Filmation took up the task of animated adaptations of popular TV shows, and they did a pretty fine job with the Brady Kids. One of the best things about the animated series is that the original cast provides the voices for the entire first season. The musical numbers are peppy and enjoyable, and the numerous crossovers also make things fun for the viewers. For instance, Superman and Wonder Woman both made guest appearances on this show, and the Brady Kids is actually the first time that we see Wonder Woman as an animated character. On the downside, things get a bit too weird and absurd at times, and the Brady Kids probably wouldn't appeal to the adults as much as it can entertain children, but it still remains a significant landmark for 70s Saturday morning cartoons, and you can always try introducing this to your kids and watch their joyous reactions. Super Friends, 1973 to 1985. This Hanna-Barbera production from the 70s brought the Justice League comic books to life, and the show was a nice introduction to the popular DC superheroes for many kids growing up. The narrative brings the greatest superheroes together as a group of friends who work alongside each other. You get to see the likes of Superman, Batman, Aquaman, and Wonder Woman in action, and they take on the forces of evil wherever they appear. They also have some apprentice superheroes like Marvin, Wendy, and Wonder Dog to help them out. And there are some fun cameos to watch out for. Although we're not familiar with the original series, it is a popular opinion that this version of Super Friends is much better. The writing is commendable, and the showrunners keep coming up with entertaining stories. There are some real villains in the mix of things, and you'll get to witness popular antagonists like Lex Luthor and Darkseid plotting against the superheroes. The voice acting is convincing enough, and the animation style is quite decent considering the times. We love how the show remains faithful to the comic books, and we strongly recommend checking out this unique interpretation of the Justice League. Funky Phantom, 1971 to 1972. The Funky Phantom is actually a promising show that got sidelined because of the popularity of Scooby-Doo during this time. The concept of this animated series is also quite similar, and the narrative involves a closely knit, bizarre team exploring various mysteries. The team includes 3 teenagers and their dog, but the surprise element in the team is the presence of a couple of ghosts from the 18th century. Their hilarious antics and fun adventures make for an entertaining series that's going to be worth your time. Hanna-Barbera probably tried to recreate the magic of Scooby-Doo with this series, and it's actually a wonderful effort from their end. The only drawback, one might say, is that the characters are a lot less appealing, and the narrative probably doesn't have the charm of a Scooby-Doo show. But that being said, there's plenty to look forward to with this animated series. Some well-known voice actors like Mike Road and Christina Holland make their presence felt, and the addition of a ghostly character to the team works wonders for the script. We even love the catchy theme music, and it's unfortunate that a show with such potential got cancelled untimely.
Did haunt them in a strange but happy place.
On the New Adventures of Gilligan.
The New Adventures of Gilligan, 1974 to 1977. This popular Saturday morning animated series by Filmation was widely popular back in the day, and it was based on the popular TV series Gilligan's Island on CBS. The New Adventures of Gilligan featured all the characters from the show, and many of the original characters even voiced their animated counterparts. The simplistic story deals with the adventures of the incompetent sailor Gilligan and his group of castaways who make for a not-so-impressive team. Following a shipwreck, they must learn to get along with each other and also master the necessary survival tactics. The concept was so interesting that it automatically translated into some engaging episodes for the viewers. The familiarity among the voice cast really helped the cause, and you'll also get to see some smooth animation work as well. The best part about the script was that there were no limitations to the wild imaginations of the showrunners, and we never fell short of humor as well because the jokes and one-liners always triggered a few laughs. The animated series certainly deserved a longer run, but it got cancelled just after 2 seasons. Do check out the show if you fancy fun adventures and witty characters in a solid narrative. Harlem Globetrotters, 1970 to 1973. Harlem Globetrotters happens to be a real-life basketball team, and this Hanna-Barbera production features animated versions of some of the popular players from this team. The narrative is set up in a particular format, where the team usually travels somewhere and gets caught up in some local conflict. Eventually, it all comes down to a basketball game to settle the issue, and the opposition does everything in their capacity to rig the game, but fails. The Harlem Globetrotters win against all odds and fight the wrongdoers in their own sporty way. This animated series aired during a time when the Harlem Globetrotters had already become a global sensation. This helped in creating a familiar zone among the audience, and the cartoon actually immortalized some of the iconic players of the team. The going becomes funny at times because all the strange challenges that the team has to face, and there's always some spirited fight in store for you to inspire the viewers. The games can become nail-biting, and the animation work for the show doesn't disappoint. The voice cast doesn't include big names, but they still get the job done. Overall, it's a wonderful series for everyone, and there's simply no way that you can miss out on this show if you're a basketball fan.
Gee, I don't get no respect.
Jabberjaw, 1976 to 1978. Jabberjaw is one of those cartoon shows that does not take itself too seriously, and neither should you. This underrated Hanna-Barbera production tells the story of a gigantic 15-foot amphibious great white shark who happens to be a skilled drummer for a rock group. The other members of this band are 4 teenagers named Shelly, Bubbles, Clamhead, and Biff, and they're all part of an underwater civilization. The titular shark travels with the other members of the band, and they head to various underwater cities. During their travels, they also encounter several villainous forces who want to take over the underwater world. Some people think that Jabberjaw is actually a Scooby-Doo ripoff, but we beg to differ in this regard. The show has some unique concepts, and while you might criticize the shortcomings, you have to consider that Jabberjaw is primarily targeted towards children. A great white shark protecting a group of children also helped in calming the nerves of those who went into shark phobia mode after watching Jaws. The plots are not always original, but rarely do they disappoint, and we're also quite impressed by the animation work in this one. Even now, the show remains relatively underrated and unknown, but you can check this one out for some lighthearted entertainment.
We shall do it! And bet you 20,000 pounds you can't!
Around the World in 80 Days.
Around the World in 80 Days, 1972 to 1973. The story of this animated series is loosely adapted from the popular Jules Verne novel of the same name, and it has a more comedic tone to it in the cartoon version. Phileas Fogg is hopelessly in love with Belinda Mays, but her uncle, Lord Mays, does not approve of a commoner marrying his niece. He will only consider it if Fogg can achieve the impossible by traveling around the world in only 80 days. In order to get the love of his life, Fogg sets off with his valet Jean and Jean's pet monkey Toto, and thus begins their remarkable adventure. We thoroughly enjoyed this show on NBC, even though it aired for only one season, comprising of 16 episodes. It deserved a longer run, but such has been the fate for many other promising shows as well. It's one of the rare Western animation shows that made it to the USSR, and it became a staple for all the adventure-loving kids out there, too. The narrative was funny, and there were some tense moments as well. Even though the target audience was largely children, the adaptation was smartly done, and even the adults enjoyed the show just as much. The series will be totally worth your time, and you must check out this 70s classic to find out just how amazing cartoons from that era can be.
It's up to you. And you. And you. It's up to you and me.
Hey, it's Yogi's Gang!
Yogi's Gang, 1973 to 1975. Yogi Bear is a very popular character among children, and this animated series marks the second incarnation of the character. The story revolves around Yogi and his friends, including the likes of Quick Draw and Huck, as they interact with friends and foes. Many who pretend to be their friends are actually embodiments of common human vices, and eventually, they're always outdone by Yogi and his gang. Meanwhile, Yogi also struggles to find a new habitat for all the cartoon animals after their natural habitat is threatened by civilization and pollution. The show was not only an entertainer, but also dealt with various social and cultural issues as well. There were villainous characters like Mr. Waste, Dr. Bigot, and the Envy, who were meant to impart some valuable lessons for the kids. The show really excels when it comes to some amazing characters, and the jokes never get old or unfunny. The limited animation style still works wonders, and this Hanna-Barbera production also ensures that things never become too preachy. If you want your kids to enjoy a show with a lot of social relevance and lessons, Yogi's Gang is just the right program to introduce them to. Tarzan and the Super 7, 1978 to 1980. Tarzan and the Super 7 is a popular Saturday morning cartoon series by Filmation, which entertained the viewers towards the end of the 70s. The show ran in an anthology format, and various faction action heroes were introduced in the process. Besides Tarzan, who became a rage during the time, the show also featured the likes of Batman and Robin, Micro Woman, Super Stretch, Moray and Manta, and the Freedom Force. This animated series promised 90 minutes of solid action and entertainment. Most of the stories were social in nature, and viewers could also enjoy some stunning visuals. The rotoscope, motion control, and detailed backgrounds made the animation work stand out, and it was probably one of the finest animation qualities of the decade. The narrative was cheesy and silly, but enjoyable at the same time, and it became a huge hit among the children. Unfortunately, it's quite difficult to get your hands on the show in today's time, but everyone deserves to witness this unique creation among the iconic Saturday morning hits. Tom and Jerry, 1975 to 1977. Almost every decade of American cartoon history has some version of Tom and Jerry, and this particular variant during the 70s is rated quite highly among the fans. The story brings you the usual cat and mouse team Tom and Jerry, and the fun-filled shorts also introduce some other characters like the dogs Spike and Tyke. The unique feature of this version of Tom and Jerry is that they are actually close friends on many occasions, and their series of adventures takes you through the episodes. First things first, we believe that it's actually extremely unfair to compare this with the classic MGM cartoons. Those are timeless gems, and you have to regard them highly. That being said, this version of Tom and Jerry certainly surpasses the Gene Deitch cartoons. The show is beautifully drawn, and the theme tunes and background score are worth humming. You'll get to experience some heartwarming storylines, and it's fun to watch Tom and Jerry as both friends and foes. There is some violence in the narrative, but things are always amusing and never sadistic. The show never fails to make you laugh, and it's a constant laugh riot for the entire season. Overall, this is a must-watch for every Tom and Jerry fan out there, and it's a complete package of childhood nostalgia that deserves to be experienced by everyone. Godzilla, 1978 to 1980. In this animated series, Godzilla comes across as a savior and not a destroyer. It all starts off with the crew of a research vessel rescuing Godzilla's young offspring, Godzuki. There is a pact between the scientists in the vessel and Godzilla that if they take care of Godzilla's offspring, the beastly creature would help them in a crisis. Soon, the research vessel requires all the help during its investigative voyages and dangerous mysteries that the scientists try to resolve. They summon Godzilla during the times of need, and the mighty creature is always there to save the day. The cartoon version of Godzilla is undeniably cheesy, but you have to remember that the series is also meant for children. As an adult, you may find several flaws with the show, but the young minds will find none, aside from the abundant entertainment. The animation is top-notch, and there are some impressive monster designs to help the cause. We would have loved for a detailed origin story and some innovative stories explored by the showrunners, but we can't complain about what we have here. Even the voiceover cast does a great job, and after some serious Godzilla live-action run-ins, this cartoon series will provide the ideal respite for all you action lovers out there. Partridge Family, 2200 AD, 1970 to 1974. This animated spin-off is a fitting tribute to the success of the live-action TV series, and the story focuses on the Partridge Family in a futuristic world. The year is 2200, and the futuristic version of the family must deal with their daily shares of adventures that come with all the future technology and tricky situations. The cartoon series was a sensible attempt to cash in on the success of the original show, but the attempt fell flat on its face because the animated version lacked several key features of the original. The stories often became boring, and there was nothing strikingly memorable about the series. On the bright side, many of the original cast members are back to do the voices, and this helps the narrative big time. The futuristic songs don't sound too bad, and the animation is almost passable. Watch this animated series only if you're a hardcore fan of the original TV show, or you can skip this one without missing out on too much. Lassie's Rescue Rangers, 1972 to 1973. The titular Lassie is a collie, a breed of herding dog, and she lives near Thunder Mountain with the Turner family. Lassie is the leader of a group of wild animals called the Rescue Rangers who work side by side with the Turners as an effective force to protect the forest. They keep things safe for the visitors and also for the environment, and the team runs into several challenges as they try to keep things steady. The idea is unique and enjoyable, and no one ever tires from watching a heroic dog leading a team of animals to assist a human. By the time the animated series was released, the live-action version was nearing its end, and it was a nice relief for the fans of the show to continue the journey. The series is produced by Filmation, and they implemented a lot of cost-cutting, which affected the animation in some ways. We're also not the biggest fans of the sound effects and corny music in each episode. However, it's still a fascinating narrative for the kids, and you can be sure that your little ones will find this show to be entertaining. Emergency Plus 4, 1973 to 1974. The live-action version of Emergency was a huge hit, and this animated counterpart was created inspired by its success. The two main characters from the show are young firefighter and paramedics John Roderick and Roy DeSoto, along with 4 young people who are also trained in life-saving techniques. Even their pets are often a part of the story, and the episodes usually explore their heroics as they go about saving the helpless in crisis situations. It's not always that cartoon spin-offs to live-action projects work wonders, but Emergency Plus 4 was a nice way to revive the original. The writing wasn't the strongest point of the cartoon series, but it made up for the flaws with the raw authenticity and original characters. We even like the animation quality on offer. At the end of every episode, the main characters would come and talk to kids about various dangerous situations and how to avoid them, which made the show a valuable life lesson for the young minds. The show ran for only 2 seasons before being canceled, and it certainly deserved a longer run given the entertaining and educational format. Return to the Planet of the Apes, 1975. This Saturday morning cartoon from the mid-70s is based on the popular movie Planet of the Apes, but the story has been changed significantly. Unlike the movie franchise, the animated series portrays a technologically advanced society, and a handful of astronauts are caught up in this advanced future, where apes and primitive humans rule the world. The clueless astronauts try to stay one step ahead of the apes, and they also try to figure out all that happened to the human population. If you're a fan of the franchise, don't try to fit this animated series into the chronology of the narrative. It is a lot more diluted and simplistic in nature, and people are not wrong in calling this a wasted opportunity because the story surely had a lot of potential. We love the character evolution and art direction, and these two factors are probably responsible for the quality content that the show offers. The dialogue and voice acting are a bit lacking, but the gritty narrative more than makes up for the flaw. The Planet of Animated Apes is certainly worth visiting, and will be a special treat for you if you like the movies as well. We would love to hear your opinion on this video for underrated Saturday morning cartoon hits from the 70s, and do tell us about the ones that are among your personal favorites. We also welcome all inputs on any particular cartoon series airing in this time slot that we may have missed out on. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.